The fastest way to natural birth interventions might just surprise you. It's not actually things like procedures. The fastest way to interventions for most moms, especially interventions that they don't want, is just not being aware and not understanding how to handle natural labor, not understanding how labor begins or when to go into the hospital or when to call the midwife. Most moms hope for a natural birth. They think that maybe they'll get lucky and have a natural birth, but that is where things fall apart. That's where one intervention leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, which is called the cascade of interventions. When a mom goes into her natural birth prepared, knowing when she should go to the hospital, knowing when she should call the midwife, understanding what things look like and how things happen, and understanding the hormones of labor, she's far, far, far less likely to end up with a bunch of interventions that she doesn't want. The fastest way to have interventions is usually to have labor induced when the mom and baby are not ready. And most moms have this happen because they don't really understand, or because their care providers assure them, oh, it's okay, we'll be able to get things going and it's fine. And what happens is you end up with a failed induction, or a mom has her birth start in a way that she wasn't expecting. Like her waters break and then she doesn't know what to do. She thinks, okay, well that means that we have to induce right this minute. And then again, one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. Or a mom goes into birth and things are kind of puttery and she's really excited. She's having some contractions, but they're not a lot. She goes to the hospital and instead of sending her home like they should, they say, oh, we'll have you come in, we'll put you on some Pitocin, we'll spend some time monitoring the baby. But they don't monitor the baby with a handheld Doppler like this. They stick you in bed and then they strap a machine to your belly, and then you're stuck in bed. So what happens is most moms think, okay, I'll just wing it, I'll get through it, I'll handle it. But then when you get into it, you don't just handle it, you don't just know how to do it. What I found with my first baby was I hoped and hoped and hoped for a natural birth, and I didn't end up having a natural birth with her, I think sometimes through sheer willpower. But what I realized afterwards was that it didn't feel very natural, and I'm really grateful that I made some of the choices that I made, because otherwise, if I had ended up in a hospital, I think that things would have turned out very, very differently. What happens is, as moms, when we go into labor and we're hoping for a natural birth, but we don't have the skills and we don't have the knowledge, what happens is you get pushed into things that you're not sure that you want, or that you don't understand how they'll impact your labor. And that can cause things to get off track and lead from one intervention to another, to another, to another. So the best thing is to go into labor and understand how it begins, understand the skills that you need to use, understand the timing of things. If your contractions are still early on, don't go in too soon. If you do that, then they're likely to say, okay, we'll just move things along. And then they'll move things along, but it won't work very well. And then you'll end up with more and more interventions as they try and get things going, or they give you Pitocin and that causes distress for the baby, and then all of a sudden there's a cesarean that probably didn't really need to happen. So the best thing is to understand how labor begins, to go into labor with skills that will help you deal with things both early on, when things aren't really going yet, and you just need a little bit of skills, and then as things get more and more intense, how to handle that, how to work with that. Because after you get apart from that beginning of labor, which can sometimes end up with pressure on you to have interventions, if you get through that with no interventions, but then you get into things deeper, the next point at which things usually go wrong is when things get really intense and a mom isn't handling it very well. And then care providers want to step in, they want to save you. And so they ask to be able to do interventions that may not be what you want. Or they may tell you that you need to stay still, or you need to stay quiet, or whatever. And it may be true that you should calm down and breathe, but you probably don't need to be stuck in a bed being told to be quiet. What you may actually need to do is get up and move. Or you may need to change positions. And when you have these skills beforehand, it helps stop that cascade of interventions. If you want more on proven tips that moms use to handle labor pain, to go through labor smoothly, head over to trustbirth101.com. That's trustbirth101.com. You'll get my 11 proven, mom-tested, proven techniques for handling labor pain, and a great introduction to skills and how you use those to have a great natural birth. Talk to you soon.